Hello and welcome to episode 71 of the Talk Nintendo podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Casey Gibson, and joining me tonight, as always, the one, the only, Perry Burkham.
Hey Casey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm fantastic. And that's all we need to know.
I was going to say, also, we are honored to be joined from the guys over at Polyknight Games who brought you InnerSpace, Chris Miller and Tyler Tomaseski.
Hey.
Yes, sir. Thanks so much for having us.
What's good?
Yeah, so Chris, what is your role at Polyknight?
So I do all music, sound, pretty much all audio for InnerSpace and for the studio.
The audio guy. So you did all the music?
Yes.
Nice. And then Tyler, what is your role?
I am the programmer, but I'm also the director.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, he's a little bit. He does a little bit of everything, honestly.
Yeah,
I'm also a lot of different hats.
Yeah, that's
Jack
all
of all trades.
So.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So you guys made InnerSpace. It's this really cool flight game for the Switch that came out a few weeks ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. January 16th was when it originally came out. Yeah.
Oh, okay. There you go. Man, it seems like forever ago, but it's really not that long ago, actually.
I know, it's only like 14 days.
Yeah, that's insane, yeah. But I was thinking before we get into that, we wanted to talk about what you guys have been playing. You know, obviously as game developers, you're sitting there on the computer 23 hours a day trying to get your game out, but for the other hour, what are you guys playing?
Sure. So I originally, I'm a huge fan of Rich Vreeland or Disaster Piece. So I've been told for the longest time that I should play Fez, which I never actually have. I've listened to the soundtrack probably like 100 times, but I'd never actually played the game. So I just recently started actually playing it, and it's great. It's definitely, I can understand why people have told me to play it, mainly just because of the way music is used in the game as ambience and how it feels like a part of the world and whatnot. So I think that's pretty much been what I've been playing. I'm a huge Lena Rain fan as well. So I just picked up Celeste, and I've literally just played that. I'm not very far in. I'm literally probably only 15 minutes or so into the game. But
you probably already died 25 times then.
It's been more than that. I'm not good at platformers by default anyway. So it's definitely taken quite a learning curve for me to actually learn the controls and stuff. But sound and music wise, it's gorgeous. So I've loved every second of it so far. I particularly like one of the biggest. I'm not going to go on too long about this, but one of the biggest things, I think one of the biggest hurdles we had for InnerSpace was the dialogue audio, and that was one thing they do really, really well in that game is the way they pitch kind of the I guess it's like a simulated vocals. The way they pitch it sounds really, really good for the dialogue audio. I don't know if you guys have played any of it yet.
Yep. Yeah, and they do it really well with the mood of, the situation too, where if she's like sort of timid, it gets like really high and almost mousy, And, I really like how they have used that.
It's good at it adds a good amount of levity, at least early on, from like the old woman character that you meet in the beginning, and stuff. It's good at adding kind of a levity, I think, to the overall feel of the game. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing. As we said, not a whole lot of time to play, but making time for it when we can. So
totally. And yeah, it's funny you mentioned the dialogue. And we'll get into this too, but that's actually like one of my favorite songs or ditties from InnerSpace. Is when you're talking to the archaeologist. I love that little.
It's funny. We had I've had a few people comment, which also that this could get edited out. But I actually tried to find you on SoundCloud. Do you have a SoundCloud?
Mm-hmm.
You do? Okay, yeah. I'll find you. I think I searched your name and I couldn't find you, but I'll find you. But I actually had someone comment on one of those, and they said that this would make a heck of a ringtone. And I've actually had multiple people say that.
Yes.
that's just it's just a dorky thing that I kind of geeked out about when I saw it. But I thought that was, it was pretty funny.
It would be, yeah. You're right. That's good. And you know who the best dialogue audio ever is from Animal Crossing.
Absolutely.
I tell you what,
Tyler would agree with that.
Yeah.
Celeste sort of has that vibe, a little bit to it, you know. Not quite as profound, but
where it just says the names of the letters really, really fast as they're talking.
Yeah. I have to throw in Banjo-Kazooie into that contest though, for like just all-time dialogue noises. Like, oh.
Which is actually what the Celeste, is it Celeste? Is that how you pronounce it?
Celeste.
Yeah, I was
is it Celeste? Okay,
Celeste.
I assumed it was Celeste. Okay, yeah. That's kind of what the dialogue reminded me of a little bit, but it was a little. I don't know. It was a little more. It was a little more synthy sounding. It's a little hard to explain, but
sure. I love how hearing the opinions of the sound designer of what he thinks about the games.
Yeah, I was gonna say, being a sound designer, like how important is that in like any given game that you play? Is that, I mean, I'm assuming that's just where your mind sort of gravitates first, probably, right? Is
that
really
exactly, which is part of the reason why, and the way that it works for me is instead of really geeking out about the music, it's more about the overall ambience. Like one of my biggest influences is Unfinished Swan, and I pretty much like I could just walk around that game listening to the ambience, and just listening to like I even geek out about like the footsteps and stuff. It's really an interesting, either the footsteps or the sound when you like throw the little paint balls and I mean, just the overall. I mean, that we can get more into that later, but there's definitely an enthusiasm. Which when I was talking about Celeste, I was originally going to open up with like, oh, those little like wooden spring things that you jump on. Those have such a cool sound. I love that sound. Blah blah blah. But I figured that was a little more niche than talking about the dialogue. So I thought I'd lead with geeking out about the dialogue instead of little contact spring platform sounds. So
you could ease us into the real nerdy talk, you know.
That's right. I didn't want to take up too much time on your podcast talking about springs and platforms. So.
Oh well. Usually we're talking about how Pepsi is so awful and Coke is way better.
Oh sure.
But, no, that Casey loves Pepsi, and we all.
I tell you what, I've gotten more response from Pepsi lovers out there than you've gotten from any Coke lovers. So.
Well, it's just like, I mean, obviously, it's just kind of like Sonic fans reaching out saying, I love Sonic.
Important here though, where does Dr. Pepper land in this?
Ooh, I love Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is like a nice, everyone's friend, family friend.
Yeah, I don't think no one throws Dr. Pepper into the fight between Pepsi and Coke.
I love my spicy cherry soda.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is that like we're in Texas, and like to the south at least, Dr. Pepper is like fighting words. Like you don't step on Dr. Pepper.
Oh really?
Yeah, you don't step to it, man. You just don't. It's our drink, like it's
interesting. Yeah, I mean Dr. Pepper. I don't think I've ever craved a Dr. Pepper in my life, but every time I do have them, they are good.
At McDonald's, Diet Dr. Pepper.
Absolutely.
Oh, see that's the funny thing is that Dr. Pepper is always the one that I hear people crave. Like people crave that the most.
It's that cherry taste.
Then again, we're all surrounded by Southerners that also crave Whataburger. So I mean, we're we may not be around the best audience in that regard, but
hey, Whataburger is great. It just wrecks you. It just wrecks you.
I am by no means hating on Whataburger. I will say I've had that, and I've had In-N-Out in my day, and I've had In-N-Out maybe twice, and I didn't particularly understand what the hype was about.
Let's not throw our game into the In-N-Out versus Whataburger. We're talking about video games. Let's not. Let's not
get too much.
We don't have either of those places up in New York, so
no, or in Iowa over here. So
what do you eat?
Sometimes if you guys are ever southbound, you should give Whataburger a try. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
I've always wanted to try Taco Bueno.
Oh yeah, Taco Bueno. Taco Bueno, I would say, is the best out of all the southern
No, don't go there. We don't need to. Wait, let's not. Okay. Let's not start Tex-Mex Holy Land wars here.
I think this is something people very very strongly about. So I'm not going to go into too much detail.
We're going to rebrand the topic of the show to fast food arguments.
No, you give us any subject, and Chris and I will be on topic for the next hour. But,
we'll talk. We'll blab about it. So.
Well, let's talk about what Tyler's playing. I hear you've been playing a certain meme game.
Meme game? What?
I mean, it's
selling it short, Perry.
I hear you've been saying you've been playing the Dark Souls of games.
The Dark Souls of Dark Souls. I am a absolutely just huge Dark Souls fan. So Dark Souls Remastered just got announced for Switch, as you guys know. Yeah, no, yeah. I'm not playing Dark Souls for the first time. I'm playing Dark Souls for I've lost count time.
Gotcha.
No, I'm absolutely going through my...
So you're one of these people.
Yeah, no, I'm going through my Xbox, my PS3, and my PC versions to decide which characters I'm going to, make first on the Switch.
Oh, man. And you hear it's going to run at a better resolution and frame rate and stuff, too.
I've been playing it on PC for a while, so...
Well, okay, yeah.
Luckily, but absolutely no. God has answered my prayers. I'm getting a portable version of Dark Souls 1.
How sweet is that? We haven't played it at all, so we're super stoked.
Yeah, I'm beyond stoked.
I mean, you guys are 3D Zelda fans, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's the grown-up version of Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask. That's why I love it so much. But that and
it is.
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't realize it played like a Zelda.
Yeah, it's a 3D lock on, shield up, wait for the openings, action game. The
combat's just probably not as fast as a Zelda game, but
it can be.
When I was gonna say, I guess if you're using a big sword, right, is generally slow. And I've played Bloodborne before, so it's I have an idea, but from what I gather, Dark Souls is much more unforgiving.
It's much slower. It's much more in your head. It's you kind of got to play the game its way, but it's all more diverse. Bloodborne has a way to play the game, and you have to start playing the game's way, or it will punish you. Dark Souls, you can be a magician, you can do faith builds, you can do dexterity, strength, and there's all kinds of crossovers of sword mages and all that kind of stuff. And oh gosh, yeah, be excited. This is the biggest news for Nintendo in my book. Other than my game's the biggest news.
Heck
for
yeah.
Nintendo. When we heard about it coming to the Switch, we pretty much came to terms with the fact that we were never going to have Tyler's full attention ever again.
He's a lost cause.
You always knew if he was away from the computer, you could have some of it.
That's right. We have no chance now. There's no way.
Oh gosh.
Well, at least you understand that. I mean, beforehand, and
it's taken some time. We come to terms with it. It's taken some time, but we're it was quite a realization. So
nice. Well, let's get into talking about your game, InnerSpace. This is I have described it on our show before, and I'm sure that you guys, I don't know, this is my hot take. It's kind of I described it as Pilot Wings wrapped with Zelda, and I know that might sound kind of weird coming from you guys.
No, I think that's great.
To me, it's a very organic, open in the same time invertedly open game. Because it's wrapped in a sphere. It's you're not on the outside of a sphere, you're on the inside. But anyway, I want you guys to explain to everyone else what this game is.
Can I take that one, Chris?
Go for it.
Yeah, so InnerSpace is a open world but inverted world exploration game where you take the role of the cartographer. You're a really durable plane that can run into walls, smash through destructible objects. We wanted to create a very tactile, smashing into stuff, just trying stuff out exploration game where you just get to kind of do whatever you want to do in this space. It takes place inside of these inverted planets, so if you kind of imagine a planet inside out, to where instead of standing on top of the Earth, you're standing on the inside of the Earth, it's kind of a fishbowl snow globe kind of situation.
Yes.
Where gravity is pulling outwards. Which is actually where we really started with the game. Is we really wanted to create this space and this setting, and we're a very like art-centric studio with we have actually more artists than we have programmers. So it's just that's kind of really our focus, is just this pretty gorgeous space, and sound a lot too. We're really excited to make something that was very unique and of its own, like soundscape wise. But just juicy.
Which it's also worth noting. There's only 7 of us, which is also worth noting. So
yeah, wow.
And over half, and a good half, over half is artists. So
yeah. I mean, so when did this project start?
Oh gosh, 3 years ago.
Oh man, lifetime ago.
Yeah. So
we were different men then.
Yeah.
All of us, man. So we started, most of us knew each other from college, and we were all kind of graduating and deciding what we wanted to do with our lives. But a few of us had worked on projects before InnerSpace. Most of us had made at least 2 games together, but some of us had made upwards of like 4 or 6. Just smaller, little like kind of game jam, like 3-month projects at the highest. And we decided that we wanted to start an indie studio that, being able to pursue our own goals was, and 3 years ago we were talking about if we wanted to make something for the Wii U or not,
Right.
Yeah,
right.
So very.
You dodged a bullet.
Yeah, I was going to say, good move.
Your words, not mine.
Hey, we love the Wii U here.
I love it. I love it too.
We pride ourselves. We started in the Wii U era before people
got back on
knew
board.
the Switch. Yeah. So we love Wii U. Anyway,
yeah,
continue.
Yeah, actually, I mean, one of the game ideas we were even considering it was actually a game developed that would have been exclusively for the Wii U, but
really?
Yeah. It was something we'd made a version of where originally the game ran on a PC computer and an Android tablet, and we thought like a 2-player game that's on a tablet and on a PC, like that we're talking Wii U. But I think we looked at the console lifespan. We're like, oh, by the time we finish the game, something new will be around the corner. So
Oh, what a shame, because that would have been really cool.
Not to mention, this was also like this was when we were still in school too, right? So this was when we were doing a class at UT Dallas.
Yeah, we didn't even know if we'd be able to get a dev kit, and we've been working for the last 3 years, and we only got dev kits a year ago.
Gotcha.
So, so it started out of college. Or actually right as we were leaving, we kind of started running our Kickstarter as just a couple of us were taking our finals actually for our last semester. But we kind of did that, worked out of our bedrooms. At one point, I think I had 5 of us in my bedroom, so people would just wake me up and start working on their desktops next to me.
It's about as humble as you can think of. Like we would have meetings every other week. We would have sprint meetings literally at Tyler's house in his bedroom, and that went on for what, a good year?
2 years,
even longer. 2 years.
2 years.
Dang.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, went on for a long time. Yeah.
Most of us were doing it as kind of a side project on our spare time while working day jobs. But for the last year, we teamed up with our publisher Aspire, and we were able to bring on 2 additional members. We were 5 people throughout that, and now we're 7, and we were able to get our dev kits, go full time, able to add Switch support, PlayStation, Xbox support. Switch has been, I think, the most fun, though. I mean, and that's not even me pandering here. Just, I love the Switch. It's fun, and it's
well, duh, it's the best console. I mean, we all know it. It's okay.
But
it's not pandering if it's true.
Yeah, I think our network programmer would agree.
Yeah, as a really in a really dry, boring programming way, it was really fun to port for. In an optimization way, it wasn't as fun, but it was much more approachable. So this last year has been a lot of getting Switch up to snuff and all that. But I think that's mostly talking about like the way we developed, but. InnerSpace starts as we were leaving college with this weird idea of an inverted planet, and it wasn't even a flying game at first. We're like, should it be in a boat? Should it be like Wind Waker? Should it be flying? We're like, well, we're an inverted planet.
Right.
We're inverted planets. Like, you want to be in the air. This is like a air game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of water as well.
There is, yeah.
I mean,
and you get to go underwater too. So
you're also like a submarine ship, like plane.
Well said.
Yeah.
I think there's the physics part of it was also something that at least I know from Tyler's that he'd put a lot of thought into it early on with the gravity essentially moving out from the core of the inverted planet.
Yeah. Its origin was actually me trying to make a 2D Super Mario Galaxy, and then I messed it up and made the planets inside out, and I was like, oh, hey, that's a game. So
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, especially with these very stylized games, it's always intriguing to me what came first. Was it that idea of this beautiful world that goes hand in hand with the music, or is it and then you sort of find what the game will be out of that? But it sort of sounds like maybe it was more just that. All right, working your way into the middle, and then sort of the aesthetic and everything sort of came afterwards.
Yeah. It was really it was really trying to figure out what visual style would sell this space. We worked a lot with gradients of trying to sell height and space. One tough thing that you really take for granted is because in some of our earliest prototypes, so at first we had the idea of this inverted planet, and the game kind of grew out of that, and a lot of it was like, all right, we tried this simulator, more like sim heavy flying game, and then it was like, oh, this is really nauseating. You have to always know which way is down. This is really confusing. So then I tried a Crimson Skies variant on the input, and that's kind of what we wound up with. Pilot Wings is Pilot Wings and Crimson Skies were kind of our two big references.
Totally.
And that was like, oh, cool. You can just ignore which direction is down. It kind of doesn't matter. At this point, you're in this cool space, but you're not beholden to it. You kind of just get to do whatever you want. And if you eventually understand it, it's okay. And if you never understand it, then whatever.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. I mean, when I was playing through it, I didn't even really know the whole inverted, and obviously I should have known InnerSpace, not outer space, but inner space, and in inside of a sphere and stuff. But it's just flying around. It's where is the sky? It's I just keep flying and it's only land. Oh, where am I? And then where's the map?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? I need to be guided. And then after a while, it's wait a second. I see what they're up to here. They want me to do stuff on my own.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because actually for a long time we actually had a map in the game, but we realized in the game where a map's a two-dimensional representation of a 3D space, and it allows you to look at things that you can't physically see. But inside of these inverted planets, you can see everything. You can see the opposite side of the planet. It's right above you. And with that kind of setting, any kind of map was kind of pointless because it's just there. You can just see it. So why would you need a map? So it was one of those just no matter how much we would try to guide players, it's it just there's no way to do it. It was just very you can go anywhere. We can't stop somebody from going somewhere. It's right above them.
And adding on to that point, I just remember we toyed around. I just remember we had some early concept ideas for a map where it was if you're flying around inside a 3D world, I remember we had this concept. I don't remember who came up with it, but it was when you see, have you ever seen those 2D kind of representations of what an unwrapped globe? You know what I'm talking about? It's hard to explain, but it kind of shows them all in it's connected, but it's a bunch of
yes.
Random, I can't even describe what I'm trying to say. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. It's not a perfect square.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember we had kind of a concept for that, and we kind of realized that was even more confusing than just having the player flying around in the inverted planet to begin with anyway.
Right.
So that was kind of a jumping off point, I think.
Were you guys nervous not putting a map in there, that it might be a little bit too obtuse for a certain kind of gamer, that someone's that isn't willing to really put in the time to just sort of figure it out?
I think ultimately that's something that even now in the patch that we're working on, it's got frame rate optimizations and a bunch of stuff, but I think it's something that we're always nervous about, and it's something that we knew would be a challenge for the game, and we just from day one were fighting against. And even to this day, some people still get lost and some people get confused. I think part of it too is it's such a chill, pretty looking game that sometimes you just want to turn your brain off, and then sometimes you realize
I found that happening to me. I kind of described it in my review. It's almost hypnotic. Like it's
easy to lose yourself. Part of
it's just exactly.
I think a common word that we heard, because I remember when we showed this game, we showed it at PAX South I think 2 years ago, and we had a good maybe a few of the worlds put together. And one of the common words that we heard a lot was therapeutic. Was how people would describe it. The experience of it was therapeutic, which I thought was a very cool. I think that was an awesome way to just. I mean, I would love to hear that. I think that's a great way to describe it.
Badge of honor.
Yeah, I mean, so I really want to talk about the ambience of the whole game, and I know we've been talking about that, but really, that is to me the strongest thing of the game that really caught my attention, and I'm sure most people's attentions, is that I don't know, like, especially with Chris here, who is the sound designer with ambience. I mean, and he was already talking about how he obviously has a passion for for the ambience. Now, like, even just kind of just sitting there and talking to the archaeologist, I love that the sound of him talking, and then just even the writing goes perfect with it as well. But I mean, what was your inspiration like for everything in the sound design?
So this is kind of okay. So this is where I think the process was what played a big part in it overall. Was originally way back when I had started working on the sound for the game, we had a tendency to go, at least for the planes and crashing the plane and all that stuff, we had a tendency to make things sound more realistic, which is kind of I think just where your brain goes to begin with, is like, well, I have a real world, I've heard sounds like this throughout my whole life, so I know what metal hitting metal sounds. I know what metal hitting rock sounds like. So originally I was like, well, I'm just going to do a bunch of recording, and I'm going to have these planes, they're going to sound like metal, it's going to sound like mechanisms, and then they're going to hit things, and it's going to sound like metal hitting this. And then it was kind of, as we continued to develop the game, and it actually kind of started to grow in its stylized voice, that was when I kind of realized that the sound in itself, I think, needed to play in this musical world overall, kind of play in the musical world as well as alongside the music, as opposed to in contrast to it. So instead of having like a soundtrack and music playing and then having realistic audio or realistic sound effects, that was kind of the jumping off point as to thinking like, well, how can we incorporate the audio of this world, or the ambience and the sound effects and stuff, how can we incorporate that into the music, which I think was kind of the biggest creative decision we made in terms of the audio. And that was where a lot of the reference material came in handy, like Ho Hokum, where they use a lot of musical synth sound design and whatnot. Same with Unfinished Swan and Monument Valley. But the main thing originally when we started was we had to figure out what this world would sound like from a musical standpoint. So the music was actually the first thing that we had started developing, and it was very, very early on. It was like, oh man, it was like when I first talked to Tyler about working on this game, I think there was just some concept art pieces to work off of, and then that was 3 years ago, and that was actually when in the first iteration, I developed kind of the main overall theme of the music, which you can hear in the soundtrack, but not so much in the actual game, just because the music is more modular and it plays more of an ambient role as opposed to a melodic for the most part.
Right.
So you can kind of hear the overall, if you listen to the soundtrack all the way through, you can hear the theme play more, but it's more used as a motif in the game itself, and it's a lot more subtle. And that was kind of something that we had also wanted as well, was we wanted kind of a minimalist sound to the game, just because we didn't want it to impose on the visual experience, and also the experience of playing it non-linearly, in that everybody's going to play it differently. Everybody's going to go through the world differently, explore it differently. So we didn't want to have, you know, this sound kind of, you know, playing over or getting in the way, I suppose, is the best way to put it.
Like a separate entity.
Exactly. So that was kind of the biggest, I think that was the biggest creative decision, was kind of deciding, which we made that decision fairly late, was that we were going to try to incorporate all of the sound design in the overall musical ambience of the game. Because allow me to geek out for a minute here. So this is
geek away.
Okay, so one of my big all-time influences is Joel Corlitz, who's done sound for Hohokum, he's done sound for Unfinished Swan, as well as a lot of other indie games, and I absolutely adore everything he's ever done. And I think that was he was kind of one of my big references for coming up with sound for the game. And one of his quotes is that when he's working on Hohokum, one of the things that he says is that you're pretty much having to think about, you know, working with modular music tracks where you can basically have a track and you split it up into all the different instruments, and you're like, okay, how can I use this one part maybe as a motif, or maybe as ambience, or maybe as a linear a point in gameplay, or, you know, expressing that the player has done something, you know, of substance or whatnot.
Right.
And so one thing he says is, like, you kind of think about it in terms of, like, well, how does music work for, like, a space? It's kind of like a non-linear musical sound design, I think is how he explained it, which I think pretty much explains this whole thing. At least what I was going for, I think that pretty much explains it perfectly, in that there's musical themes that hopefully if someone plays it, they kind of pick up on as they work their way through the story. But if you're just going through the world, you're not going to experience overall, like, you're not going to experience linear progression in the music. It's used more as a flourish for kind of making someone feel, you know, what that world would sound like, basically. And if you go through each of the worlds, they all sound different. They're all in different keys, which was a creative decision we made, which is super subtle. But this is kind of getting more into the geeky factor here, where we pretty much decided that when everything was going to be more stylized, we made the decision to have all of the sound design within each of the worlds play within that musical key. So if you, for example, I'm not going to go too much into the musical terminology here, but if you're playing in, for example, the main hub world, everything plays just in the key of C, which is happy-go-lucky. Everything is, you know, happy, stop and smell the roses, all that kind of stuff. And then when you get more into the ice world, it's actually in the key of B, which is a lot more sharp sounding, and all of the sound effects and sound design in that key, or in that world, is within that key. So
does that even change, like, when you're flying the plane? Because even, like, you know, as you turn with the right stick, you know, there's like this arpeggio almost or just, you know, this scale like going on. Does that change too, or?
So that was actually a creative decision that we had made as well, where it was kind of this toss-up between what is the sound of the world itself and then what is the sound of the plane. And I think what we'd actually decided to do was, as the world changed, the key or the musical motifs in the world and whatnot, those actually change, but the plane itself stays the same. So we have the same key for the piano. We have that playing the same throughout all of the worlds, but then once you pick up other planes, depending on which plane it is, the musical key for those are different. So I kind of equated the Zephyr Spark is one with the ice world, and the Tidal Horn is one with the crab world. So each plane actually is equated with a different world, and they're within that key. But
cool.
But it's super subtle. You probably wouldn't even notice it if I hadn't have told you.
Right.
but the main thing was, it was kind of this dichotomy between the music and sound of the world and then the music and sound of the plane, where we wanted them to be together, but we also wanted the plane to have its own identity, which I know sounds super pretentious, but it builds a good contrast when you are flying through the world in the piano playing, and say you're in the ice world and you're breaking icicles or you're scraping and colliding on ice, and those are actually digital. Those are made all with digital sounds, so there's no actual acoustic recording of those sounds used. It's all digital, essentially simulations of what those would sound like using synthesizers, and then those are all within the musical key of that world. So it adds a good contrast for, you know, if you're flying the piano plane around and you're hitting stuff within that world, all of those sounds in reaction to the plane colliding or interacting with the world are going to be within that world's key. I don't know if any of that. I don't know if any of that made any sense. That's super.
No, totally.
Super niche and super geeky, but it's super subtle too.
It sounds like you guys are setting up to make a spin-off sequel that's a rhythm game.
The next Thumper.
Of some sorts.
Could you hear Tyler's excitement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so my tough thing is like I love Patapon. I love so many of the, I love rhythm games. I really do. But like in my own thing is that like I would love to take a lot of the thoughtfulness that goes into music games and carry that into other genres. You know, anytime you hear that really like that kind of Proteus styled, like really musically responsive world, and there's like this deep thought into audios and keys and whatever. But like anytime that carries into games that normally don't have that kind of stuff, and they just do it, you know, just as a like thing that they felt like doing. Like, yeah, I love that so much. And like I think your comparison earlier to like
have you guys played Thumper? Yes.
No, I don't think so.
The violent rhythm game.
The violent rhythm game.
Wait, what did you say? What did you say? What was the game? Sorry, I didn't hear you there.
Thumper.
Oh my god, I saw a video. I watched a gameplay video for that.
It is so
Crazy
good.
hard.
I highly recommend it. It's on Switch too. I mean, so you can. But I mean, it runs great on Switch. But
it's a VR.
I think it's
game
even
too.
on PS. It's PSVR as
well.
Oh my god.
Yes. No. I've played this. I didn't know that was its name, but I've played this on somebody else's Switch.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
oh my
really
god,
good.
the sound design is fantastic in that game.
Oh
my god, it's
and then
so
like
good.
Especially like with the HD Rumble, which also is really cool in there too.
I know what I'm doing after the podcast, guys.
yeah, it's so good. But yeah, I love that that idea about Tyler, how you were saying, you know, taking the spirit of rhythm games and putting them in other genres is really cool. Yeah, and I think that really works really well with InnerSpace, and I'm glad we could get into the nitty-gritty of the ambience, because I think it's obviously, I mean, for me, that was the strongest point of the game. You know, that stuck out the most. So,
well, thank you so much. That means a lot coming from a fellow musician. When I saw your bio, and I was like, I was like, holy crap, that's so awesome. Another musician's geeking out about the audio and stuff. I thought that was super
it's
exciting.
so good.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, everything. The game is great. Now, I would love to, as we close out, talk about the release. You know, I mean, obviously the release of the game for Switch and other consoles, and the reaction from people. I mean, because now you suddenly have the most amount of people that have played the game now. So how has that been?
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see everyone get into it. It's been really, really heartening. It's been a little soul-crushing at times. You know, this thing we've been working on for 3 years, just to see people either adore it, be a little confused, or rip it apart. You know.
Yeah.
You know, it's.
Yep. Well, that's the internet.
Yeah, it's the internet.
You know, that's how it goes with every creative endeavor.
It's vicious, but yeah, you know, I think for the most part we've been pretty happy. I think some of the stuff that we've seen that people have gotten caught up on, we've got fixed up in this patch that we're rolling out. We've even got some frame rate improvements for Switch, which is really good.
That is, I'm so looking forward to that. That sounds awesome.
Yes. You know, and I think the big thing is that we always knew that this was going to be a really odd game, and we've done our best to make it really approachable. You know, and some stuff has remained really odd and remained really weird, and you know, it's the kind of thing that requires like the old school Nintendo Power approach of like what the hell do I do? You know, like.
Right.
The schoolyard game where you got to talk to your friends.
Recess.
And figure out what's going on.
And it's but generally with reception, I think it's been pretty positive. We've had a lot of like 90s, a lot of like really positive reviews. We've had some mixed ones, but generally I think the people that have gotten it have really loved it, and that's been like really awesome. And anyone that for the most part, I think people that don't get it still really want to like it, and it's still just short of a few things, and hopefully with patches and a few tweaks just based on community feedback, that hopefully that gets there for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I mean, honestly, like playing it, I knew this is not a game for every person.
Oh,
like, I don't think every single person is gonna completely appreciate the game. It definitely, for me as a Nintendo player, which I know that. I don't know how really Nintendo based your focus is with everything, but it really just like I was like, wow, like I'm getting the feels that like I get like from like Skyward Sword in the Ancient Cistern and like and from Wind Waker and I'm getting it in, and I was just like, I can't, like it's amazing, like the feeling of wonder and as I was exploring through, and but it's just one of those things where, yeah, like you said, it's an odd game, and but it's beautiful, and it
starts to make sense once you get your hands on it,
Yeah, I think wonder's that's a good word to use. I think that was kind of something we've always tried to, since it's pure exploration game is kind of the idea.
And for me personally, if a single person gets a Zelda vibe from it, I'm like, yes, like absolutely. The last three years of my life were worth it. Really, because like I so badly.
That's immediately what I felt. So
I so badly wanted that, like that moment when you like get the chest to become visible and it plays the do 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 do, and it's the little jingle, and you're just like, yeah, like I just even that carries through in Chris's work of like this kind of atmospheric, chill, droning environment that like only when you make progression or interact with stuff you get these like really strong and melodic like jingles and melodies that like really kind of like have this cool like this cool
right.
like, that the Zelda jingle, the chest, the boss room door, just all that, it's
the payoff,
everything.
I love
it. which that was kind of the biggest thing that that stems from the biggest thing that I knew I didn't want to do for the music for the game, was I didn't want to just have music looping like how you would hear in platformers and whatnot, because I'm like, well, somebody's going to be flying around this world for potentially a really long time, and I don't want them to be hearing the same music loop over and over again. So that was why we kind of were like, well, let's have different elements play as you fly around this certain area, or you go underwater, or you go deeper within the water, different parts fade in and fade out and whatnot, as opposed to just hearing the same kind of musical idea over and over and over again. It changes as you go through the world, which was what we knew we wanted to do from the get-go.
It helps make the world feel like larger too, where you're being rewarded, this is a new area, it's a deeper, change of pace, to sort of...
Right. That was pretty much one of the biggest things, was like when you go underwater, and we were like, I was always like, we want to have that fast arpeggiated thing playing, because it's like, when you first dive underwater, there's like bubbles and whatnot. I was like, let's simulate that with the music and have all these fast arpeggiated things, and then it's kind of like as you go deeper down into the water and into these caverns and stuff, those fade out, and then you hear these more long, sustained, lower synths as you go within the water and you kind of go deeper. And that was an idea that we made very early on that we knew we wanted to keep in the game. So,
but I think if
just stuff like that.
Yeah, I think for us to kind of strike that like mellow, but then like music coming in as you explore new spaces. But like, I think really just like I think you guys like to hear somebody else say it without me having like put the idea in their head of like, oh yeah, this is a weird Zelda game, but also instead of using a sword and shield, you're an airplane, and also it's inside of inverted planets, and it's kind of trippy and psychedelic. Like that's an amazing game pitch to me, and if anyone gets that vibe and like has those emotions at all, I'm like, sweet, That's...
See, the funniest thing for me was and I was too embarrassed to admit that I'd never played it, but when we had a Twitch streamer streaming the game live, and there were multiple people, and it was one of the first ones that we were obsessively watching these things when the game was like first getting released, where we would post it in our chat, and we'd be like, this person's streaming, and then we would all like go on there, and we'd all be like watching this person stream.
Oh heck yeah!
And it was obsessive, man. I'm telling you, we were looking like every single streamer that we could find, we were posting on there, and we were going on there, And one person did say, it was actually multiple people, they did say when they were playing through, I think, the hub world, they were getting major Fez vibes from playing. And I was too embarrassed to admit that I'd never actually played Fez, but I'd watched lots of Rich Vreeland videos where he talks about the soundtrack, and I know the soundtrack, but I'd never actually listened to it in game, which is what I'm doing now. And I can honestly say that is an awesome thing to hear. That probably made the whole thing for me when I heard that.
That's awesome.
And and it's one of those things where, when you're watching these Twitch things, as I said, it was an obsessive, at least for me. I can't speak for Tyler, but at least for me, especially when it was coming out and stuff, it was so obsessive that, we all created, at least people that didn't. Well, actually, I think we all created new Reddit accounts as developer Reddit accounts for Polynight Games because we had an AMA for InnerSpace, and then we would go on Twitch, and I created a developer account for that as well. And people would go on there and they'd be playing, and I'd be freaking out. And as you guys were talking about the encounter with the sunfish earlier, and not really knowing exactly what to do as you progress through the different stages. And people would be playing, and they'd be flying, they'd be going underwater and swimming around for like 15 minutes, and they're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And then you'd be on there, and you'd be on there as a dev, and you'd be, you'd go, I would jump in the comments and be like, hey, Dev here, you need to do this. And they'd be like, over the speaker, they'd be like, thank you so much, Dev. I love you so much. Blah, blah, blah. And it was just it was so fun. It was almost an addicting thing to watch people play it. Because a lot of the Twitch streamers have like really super awesome communities, so a lot of the people commenting in the chats were like super nice and were super excited and were actually making really good conversation and asking really awesome questions and stuff, and it was really engaging, which was super cool. I know Eric and I would go, who's our producer. We would go in a lot of those chat rooms, and we would talk to people and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. So
did you get valuable feedback through those like Twitch streams and stuff for future patches or fixes you needed to do?
I think that was probably the biggest takeaway that we had, at least from what I saw, was watching somebody play the game live. You see their frustrations live, and you see kind of what people have a tendency to do. Because, everybody explores it differently, but then one thing that we learned is that, we've been looking at the game for so long that we kind of got complacent about it. Like, I had never really seen, at least for a long time, seen someone play through the game. So it's interesting watching how differently people play it, and that's something that we've learned is that everybody plays it very differently.
And to see someone that's entirely fresh that, even like is like getting a press key and they like don't know that it's an game about inverted planets, to see them like, like have these like just amazing, like, oh, like there's no sky, or, like the first time you break out of that tunnel, out of the cave, and you get that nice reveal with the jingle and all that, like to see people's fresh reactions to challenge, to exploration, to reveal, to wonder, to mystery, and all that. It's one of those things where we learn a lot about seeing people play the game for the first time. And, within your own circles, you can only drag so many people to play your game for the first time that have not heard about it. And to really see someone, for, better or for worse, to play it for the first time, it was addicting, and it was terrifying at first, and then it was addicting, and then it was sometimes annoying, and sometimes it was just a guilty pleasure. And I think most of us at some point had like 3 different Twitch streams up, and also we're doing work, and it just to kind of, I think also like really participate with the community like that. And I think we're still a small enough studio that like it's not unreasonable for us to try our best to like really engage with everyone. And we can't, but
probably gives you a big boost too to just see people enjoying your game.
Yeah. It's after this long trek, it is a big emotional boost to see somebody enjoy it. And
it is.
Yeah.
It's also just as terrifying when you see someone that I don't know. One of the things that I've learned is I don't read YouTube comments or watch YouTube reviews, because I swear I watched a couple, man, and I mean there's only like 2 that I saw, but man, I'm telling you, some of those people are. They're not exactly nice.
Yeah. That
yeah,
said though,
I don't know why it is those YouTube comments.
Man, I'm telling you.
That said though, like we did an AMA on launch day with the Nintendo Switch subreddit.
They're great.
And like, oh my gosh, like I can't say this about every community, but like Nintendo Switch people, and I think like you guys probably can really speak to this. Having like
we're listening,
like having like run a podcast through like the dark days of the Wii U, you know, like Nintendo people are like freaking hellbent on just like a loving and appreciating every port and every morsel of video game, and like it's a really it's a really positive community.
Exactly.
And,
I mean, I mean, you guys releasing this, alongside all the other consoles, like it is cool. You know, it is a win for the Nintendo community.
Yeah.
Some of the questions were super technical. I was actually really surprised when we were reading through the subreddit. There were a couple about sound, but overall it was a lot of very technical Switch, obviously Switch related questions, which actually really surprised me.
Mm-hmm. It's Nintendo people really. I think they have a very high gamer IQ. I know it's kind of a crummy catchphrase, but like. The amount of people asking really like astute and really like targeted questions at really specific things was like a lot of them. And it was a really engaging conversation to have with them. But also like, I mean, honestly, like I'm pretty proud of like our port. Like it's not perfect, but like at the same time, like we haven't made any content changes to the Switch version. Like there's not a like, we're not running like compressed, like more heavily compressed audio on our Switch port. It's all there, and like the only difference being like the resolution, because most Switch games run 720 on portable. Like other than that, like we kind of got to deliver the full game to Switch. I'm like pretty damn proud of that. So
heck yeah, man, it's amazing. And I mean, just to wrap things up, what's next for you guys? What I know you're doing the patch, which when is that gonna be coming out, or when you trying to get it out?
Yeah, so we've got that in Nintendo's hands right now, so that is wholeheartedly up to them. That's been shipped off. Okay. Yeah, so that's just one of those like when it goes live, that could be tomorrow, it could be a week from now.
That's crazy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that's I'm not trying to put pressure on anyone there. That's just legit. It's in the pipe, and it's it'll drop when it drops, which hopefully is really soon. As far as what we're working on next, that's something that we're still kind of soul searching on a lot of ways, but I think we'll always kind of carry that wonder and color and vibrance. And I don't know if we're going to make another exploration flying game and inverting planets, probably not, but hopefully we'll make something with the same kind of out there indie charm.
Awesome.
Yes. Well, which we're actually working on. I don't know if we're allowed to.
No, you can't not say, Chris, what we're working on. You cannot say.
No. I was gonna say that the next patch that we had, it's the content patch.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't think we can talk
as well.
Yeah, I don't think we can talk too much about that, but we have a kind of quality of life patch that has some changes to gameplay and tuning and bug fixes. We were hoping to put out another patch to add in some additional planes and some additional content for everyone for free.
Ooh.
But
there's some audio updates in there as well. Partially based off community feedback, partially based off of overall.
You being obsessed with.
That's what I was going to say, your obsession.
Me being absolutely obsessive, yes. Well said.
But,
no more audio patches, dang it. It's the fifth one.
This boy ain't right.
But I want to change the key of the ice world.
We're gonna have to reach that at some point where we just put it all away and let it all be, So
right, totally.
But never. Until that day.
Well, guys, I want to thank you for coming on to the old podcast here.
Yes, thank you so much.
It was really fun to talk to you guys about this game.
Yeah, dude. Likewise, thank you so much for having us. It's been a pleasure, man.
Yes, and so now it's time to pimp out all of your wares. Where can they find you and your game and everything?
So you can find us at InnerSpaceGame.com. We're on the eShop. We're on the PlayStation Network. We're on Xbox One. We're on Steam. Literally anywhere that anyone's playing video games right now, just search InnerSpace and pick up our game. And also drop us a line. We're pretty responsive on Twitter. Let us know what you think about the game, and we're open to talk to anyone, you know? So yeah.
What are your guys' Twitter handles?
Chris, you get to say yours out loud.
Oh, God, I do.
Unless you don't want to. You don't have to.
He's gotta.
No, I have a super embarrassing one that was originally a joke from college, like 4 years ago. But it's at X Gucci Mac, which is XGUCCIMAC, and that's, don't even ask. I don't even remember. It was a joke from a long time ago.
X Gucci Mac. All right.
And we can catch our studio at Polynight Games, and you can catch me at Godjammit. That's GODJAMMIT. It's a dumb music. Right. It's a dumb music joke.
And there's an InnerSpace game Twitter as well, which is just InnerSpace game. So,
all right,
drop that one as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Well, thanks again, once again, guys. We really appreciate you guys coming on to talk about InnerSpace, and of course. The door's always open, so next time you guys got some news you want to talk about that next game, you know you got a Nintendo podcast to swing by.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for having us, guys.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, we'll see you later.
All righty. Talk to you later, guys.
All right, have a good one.